Hello, Scorpio friends, and welcome to your November 2025 Tarot and Astrology reading, plus detailed Vedic astrology forecast, including the November 5th full moon and the November 19th new moon. So Scorpio, I'm looking at your chart over here, and you have some wonderful activations this month. There's this lucky trine happening with all three water signs activated, and they are in your lucky first house, ninth house, and fifth house. So really some good astrological energy for you this month, Scorpio. We'll get into that later in the Vedic astrology portion. If you're new to Vedic Sidereal Astrology, welcome. A quick and easy way to know if you are a Scorpio is if your birthday is from November 16th to December 16th, you have Scorpio Sun Sign as per Vedic Sidereal Astrology. Now, if you're coming from Western tropical astrology and that seems weird to you, give it a chance and see if it resonates. Vedic astrology uses accurate real-time data about the positions of the planets and the stars, so it can give very accurate predictions about how these subtle energies affect your sign. If you're new here, welcome to Anastasia Tarot and Vedic Astrology channel, where I help you navigate the cosmic currents and surf the planetary wavelengths with a little more ease and grace. This November 2025 Tarot and Astrology forecast is for Scorpio rising, Scorpio moon, and Scorpio sun. We're going to start with your Tarot and Numerology, then we'll get into your detailed astrological transits. Chapters are time-stamped in the description if you like to skip ahead. And as always with collective readings, take what aligns and leave the rest behind. So now, Scorpio, let's get into your readings. Okay, Scorpio, welcome to your November 2025 Tarot reading. And I am going to pull 5 cards for you, and then we'll get the 6th card from Numerology. Okay, Scorpio, so past, present, future. Really quite a lovely progression here from the tower to the star. Okay, and what to avoid, what to go toward. And our final card, we're going to pick by numerology. So we have 16 plus 17 plus 8 plus 4. We're not using the page. He's not a number card. So this is 4 plus 5 equals 9. So your numerology card, Scorpio, is Hermit. Card number 9. And I've had Hermit come up this way for a couple of other signs too. So interesting, that may be a theme this month. Now, Scorpio, one thing to think about with this 9 numerology is 9 is Mars. Mars is your Lagna Lord in Vedic astrology. 9 is Mars's number, and 2025 is a 9 year. So there's an underlying subtle theme of completion, and especially, you know, being your number of 9 for Mars. Mars is your ruling planet, Scorpio. So we'll get into that in just a minute. So looking at this Tower card, Scorpio, now the Tower could be like some sudden changes. Obviously, you can see from the imagery, you know, Tower is not a particularly pleasant card. And I'm looking over at your charts here, Scorpio, and you have both Sun and Venus activating your 12th house. So there could have been some losses, difficulties, upheavals, Scorpio. 12th house, although it is the house of loss, ego dissolution, expense, it's a dusthana, it's a suffering house. However, the tower is also really activating on a spiritual level in terms of releasing that which no longer serves us. So for some Scorpios, you may be coming out of some real, difficulty, and maybe something that hit you really unexpectedly. Obviously, that's not all Scorpios, but for some Scorpios, if you are coming out of this, some kind of malefic, difficult, sudden experience that happened to you, just be aware there is this lovely progression toward the Star card, which is bringing some healing into, bringing some healing and some recovery for you. And for other Scorpios, this may be more of an internal thing. It could have been more of an ego death experience. It could even be a sudden spiritual awakening or a sudden spiritual realization. Tower can very much work that way. We can see, the fire of God, the divine fire is knocking the ego off. For some Scorpios, this is going to be happening more on a spiritual level than actual misfortune in your regular life. And then this star, okay, actually I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, so that's the passing influence. That's what's on its way out. Now, the Page of Coins. Scorpio, you're in a learning process. It's like this tower experience, again, whether it was on the physical 3D plane or whether it was a more internal spiritual type of experience. You're learning from it and you may be not quite sure what to make of it yet. Now, for some Scorpios, because this is a coins card, for some Scorpios, this might have been a financial misfortune that you just went through. Again, not all Scorpios, some. But if that was the case for you, Scorpio, where this tower misfortune was financial in nature, or perhaps even health-wise in nature, again, there is healing coming. There is recovery with this Star card. So whether this tower had to do with finances or perhaps health for some, there is definitely recovery here with the Star card. Now, getting into these advice of the cards, we have what to avoid and what to lean into. And these cards kind of made me laugh a little bit, Scorpio. So what to avoid is getting too busy. So Scorpio, you've got this lovely benefic water trine happening where you have your Lagna Lord Mars. He's your power planet. He's in your sign in the first house, and it's making a trine with Saturn in the 5th house and exalted Jupiter in your 9th house. So Scorpio, incredible auspicious water trine activation, and with your Lagna Lord in your 1st house, a lot of energy and vitality. So, if you were having any health problems, you're probably really starting to feel your energy and vitality picking up. However, Mars is combust for part of this month. Mars is combust November 7th, going all the way into March. So even though Mars is activating your 1st house and giving you a lot of vitality and energy, just be aware that he is combust. So take it easy. Don't get too busy, Scorpio. Okay, you may have all this energy, and then, the holidays are coming up with the Thanksgiving holiday. And so there could be quite a bit of temptation to just, balls to the wall, full speed ahead, really busy. So Scorpio, just, take it easy a little bit. And in fact, we see that here. What to lean into, what to go toward is this 4 of Coins. So Scorpio, budget your time, budget your energy, budget your finances. And again, especially if, this was a financial or health related difficulty you went through, part of your recovery is going to be from budgeting. So again, if it was a financial difficulty, obviously, budgeting your finances. And then also health-wise, if you were going through some health difficulties, it is budgeting your energy, budget your vitality, budget your energy, make sure you do get some rest. Hermit is quite an interesting card here. So we touched upon this overarching 9 theme. 9 is Mars's planet. It's 2025 is a 9 year, and Hermit is the 9 card. So Scorpio, if this is, if part of budgeting your time, money, and energy is bringing certain things into completion, making sure things are done, complete, wrapped up. And this Hermit card also speaks to that, Scorpio, as much as you may be, going out in the world. Really, you have, with this first house activation, you're really wanting to express yourself in the world, but you do still have this 12th house activation, especially in the beginning of November. It's a little bit less in the end of November. But with this 12th house activation, Scorpio, you do still need some alone time. And the Hermit also, for some Scorpios, if you are studying esoteric spiritual subjects like tarot or Vedic astrology, energy healing, those sorts of esoteric or spiritual topics, if you have a spiritual teacher, the Hermit really speaks to taking some time to, stay connected to source that way. You have this wonderful activation of your first house, and you have Ruchaka Yoga that's really, elevating your chart, elevating your vitality, elevating your personal power. However, part of that personal power is drawing inward and, working from the inside out. If you enjoyed this video, please do like and subscribe. And up next is your Vedic astrology predictions for November 2025. And we're going to go through house by house, planet by planet. Hello, Scorpio friends, and welcome to your November 2025 astrology forecast for Scorpio rising, Scorpio moon, and Scorpio sun, and a very happy birthday to November Scorpio sun. And remember, if you're new to Vedic astrology, you have Scorpio sun if your birthday is between November 17th and December 15th. And again, that's because sidereal Vedic astrology is based on the actual fixed positions of the stars, whereas tropical Western astrology is a symbolic system that's tied to the seasons on planet Earth. Scorpio, you have got some interesting things going on for November. So Scorpio, we are starting your November astrology forecast looking at the 5th November full moon. And as you can see here, I've calculated the full moon is opposite the sun, and you can see the sun is at 19 degrees of Libra and the moon is at 19 degrees of Aries. So the big news you've got going on this month, Scorpio, other than your birthday, if you have a birthday in November, is this Mars, your Lagna Lord, is in your first house. Mars would have gone into your first house on October 28th, and he remains there through the whole month of November. Now, Scorpio, this forms a asterism called Ruchaka Yoga, and this is quite nice. It elevates your personal power, your vitality, your health. Now, Mars does go combust on November 7th, so that affects this a little bit health-wise. Normally, Mars, your Lagna Lord in your first house is really just going to be excellent for your health. But because Mars does go combust on November 7th and remains so throughout the month of November, Scorpio, you do want to do all the lifestyle things to support your health. And although you are going to really have vitality and, improvement of health, don't overdo it. Do all the lifestyle things, get plenty of rest, hydrate, eat a good diet, support your health. And just, even though you may feel tempted, don't overdo it. Take it a little bit easy, Scorpio. But otherwise, this Mars in domicile, Mars in your first house, is forming this Ruchaka Yoga, which elevates your experience throughout most of November to give you vitality, personal power, just generally boosting your whole chart for the month. Now, you're going to see here, you've got this 12th house activation, at least in the first part of the month. Sun is in your 12th house and Venus is in your 12th house. So this can really put your focus on spirituality and some of the deeper aspects of life. Now, for Scorpios that are interested in travel, this isn't all Scorpios, but this 12th house activation, if travel, especially long distance travel, overseas travel, long distance travel, if that is part of your lifestyle or part of your plans for November, this 12th house activation with Sun and Venus in your 12th house can definitely help along your travel plans. And again, we have Jupiter is exalted in your 9th house, so that can also point to overseas travel. Now, Venus is in domicile also. We talked about your Lagna Lord. Mars is in domicile, makes him strong. Mars is happy there. Venus is also in domicile. She is very happy being in Libra. And in the 12th house, this puts an aspect of Venus toward spiritual love and unconditional love. Now, for Scorpios, if you're interested in a sexual relationship, or if you're already in a sexual relationship, this, Venus and the Sun in 12th house Libra can definitely, create sexual passions and some deep, it could even be deeply spiritually transformative experiences around your sexuality, if that is part of your lifestyle. And then the other focus may be for some Scorpios on sleeping and dreaming. Again, if dreams are part of your spiritual practice, you may find that your dreams are vivid and, maybe even spiritually transformative during this time. For Scorpios who work in institutions such as hospitals, prisons, or for Scorpios who are doing charity work, work for a nonprofit, or, similar types of humanitarian work, you may find that your career life gets a boost from while Sun is in your 12th house, while Sun and Venus are in your 12th house. Again, that's not going to be all Scorpios. Sun in 12th house is not really great for your career unless your career is humanitarian, charitable, or in, hospital, prison, or an ashram. Again, if you have any plans to visit an ashram, do any sort of spiritual pilgrimage, this 12th house activation is very much supporting those types of activities. And you get subtle support, Scorpio, from having Jupiter. This benefic Jupiter is exalted in your 9th house. And this is lovely, again, for any sorts of spiritual pursuits, studying philosophy, getting into philosophical debates, or being involved in your, if you have a temple group, a church group, spiritual groups that you're involved in. And for Scorpio students, exalted Jupiter in your 9th house will very much support your studies. So Scorpio students, enjoy this placement. Jupiter is in Punarvasa Nakshatra, which is a Jupiter-ruled nakshatra. So there is a double lucky Jupiter influence here in your 9th house of study, religion, philosophy. It's also the house of Guru and Father. So for those Scorpios, if your father is still with us, this could be a time where you're really enjoying your relationship with your father. If you have had difficulties in your relationship with your father, this could be a good time to improve those relationships. And with all this 12th house activation, if your father is passed and, maybe there's still, some lingering, lack of peace or bad feeling there, this combination of exalted Jupiter in your 9th house and this activation of the 12th house could be a really fruitful time, Scorpio, to heal your relationship with your father if he has indeed passed over. You continue with Rahu Ketu on this 410 axis. So this is activating the 4th house, home, mother, vehicles, and the 10th house of career. There may be disruptions to the career, but this can actually work in a really creative and positive way, as Ketu does well being in Leo. And, Rahu may put your focus on your home life for Scorpios who are involved in home projects, working at home, home renovations, real estate. This Rahu activation of the 4th house can support those careers. And that's going to be supported by your Lagna Lord being in domicile in the 1st house, that Rushaka Yoga. Now, Saturn continues in your 5th house retrograde. That Saturn retrograde is going to hold up to November 27th. So most of this month of November is kind of your last chance hurrah to rework some of your creative ideas for Scorpio creatives. And then for Scorpios with children, again, this might be a time where you may feel some sense of burden or restriction from your children, but the retrograde kind of gives you a do-over. And, again, with this 12th house activation, there could be some real spiritual breakthroughs here, if there is any, sort of repetitive patterns in your relationship with your children that you would like to transform and move toward higher love. This can be a time to do that. Okay, Scorpio, we are now going to fast forward and get a look at November 19th, new moon, so we can check out how the end of the month goes for you. Okay, Scorpio, so as you can see, by November 19th, new moon, there is a lot of 1st house activation. Scorpio, especially if your birthday is in November, this is your chance to shine, Scorpio, with all of this activation in your 1st house, your personal power, your personal magnetism, your personal vitality is very much elevated at this time. Now, new moon, spiritually speaking, is a time to plant the seeds that you wish to see grow over the next 2 weeks or longer if you prefer to work with a longer time frame. So this can be a excellent time if you have goals regarding your personal power. They could be health goals to increase your vitality, or they could just be generally goals that are increasing your personal power, your personal magnetism, your willpower, things of that nature. This new moon with so much activation in your first house can really support that. Now, I did mention Mars is retrograde. Again, excuse me, Mars is combust. Not a big deal, but you do want to watch your health. You know, even though this may be a good time with Sun and Mars in your first house, making that beneficial Ruchaka yoga, you know, this can be a good time to get into physical activities, you know, working out, whatever sorts of physical activities you enjoy. However, do take it easy. Just remember, Mars is combust, so, you know, take it easy. Don't overdo it. But all in all, this is really going to see an elevation of your personal magnetism, your personal power, the strength of your personality. Venus continues in Libra, so Venus is strong in your 12th house. So again, this continues that 12th house activation, which can bring sexual enjoyment for some Scorpios. For other Scorpios, it may be more having to do with your spiritual life and your dreams, keeping a dream journal, things of that nature. And Jupiter is continuing in your 9th house, Cancer. However, he has gone retrograde here. So Jupiter is such a benefic planet that this retrograde is, it may just be bringing you new activities, especially, new second chances. For example, Scorpio students, maybe there was something you wanted to study and you sort of missed the boat the first time around. That opportunity may come back around for you. So just keep in mind, although Jupiter is retrograde, it's still exalted. It's a benefic planet. So these Jupiter retrograde do-overs are likely to bring you a do-over or a second chance on some opportunities that could be quite benefic for you and quite beneficial for you. Mercury is retrograde in your first house from November 9th through the 24th. And he'll go into Libra for a little while and then he'll go back into Scorpio. But for most of the month, from November 9th onward, Mercury is retrograde in your first house. So again, not a big, huge deal, but just be aware, even though all of this first house activation is really supporting your, personal power, your personal charisma, just be aware this Mercury retrograde, you may have to communicate things twice. I mean, it could be something as minor as, emails or messages getting lost. Or it could be that you're not understood, with this Mercury and Mars together. It could be that someone isn't understanding your communication, and you may have to rethink, how do you communicate with this person? So that can become very important for you during this Mercury retrograde. And of course, do all the obvious things, back up your files, be careful with tech. And, if you are traveling, because you've had this 12th house activation, if you find that you're traveling during November, definitely err on the side of caution, allowing extra time for things to go wrong, which can sometimes happen for Mercury retrograde. Not always, but sometimes. And then the main thing just to be aware of is if you do find your communication with someone is not being received in the correct way, or you may have to be patient and sort of go over things twice with people, or even think about a new or different way of communicating with people so that your message is coming through. So all in all, Scorpio, November is shaping up to be a good month for you with this, your Lagna Lord, your ruling planet is in your first house by the end of the month. Sun is in your first house, and you have lucky Jupiter in your ninth house, and it is casting its drishti, or its gaze. Jupiter is putting an aspect on your fifth house, which is, that's going to help some of this. Saturn having Jupiter putting its drishti or aspect onto your fifth house of creativity and children is a little subtle, nice effect there. And then it's also aspecting your first house. So again, this is quite nice to have Jupiter with its benefic aspect shining on this first house activation. So Scorpio, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please do like and subscribe. This is a very small channel, so every little bit helps. And wishing you the blessings of good luck, peace, prosperity, and good health for November 2025. Namaste.